Listen, I'm going to tell you about the single most ridiculous thing I have witnessed in my 300 cycles as a galactic combat observer. And trust me, after all these years, I have seen plenty of absurd things unfold across the known universe. I once watched a Velian commander accidentally eject himself into the cold vacuum of space during what was supposed to be a triumphant victory speech. The irony was almost poetic. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened when the humans sent Kira Vex to the Academy of Interstellar Warfare. The Academy operates on a deceptively simple principle. Every recruit gets assigned to a combat class based on their neural compatibility scores. Those with high scores get paired with apex predators, elite war beasts that can level entire battalions with contemptuous ease. The ones with medium scores receive standard combat creatures, anything you can theoretically control without your consciousness hemorrhaging out of your ears. And then there is the failed hunter class. You have likely not heard of it, and that is by design, because nobody talks about the failed hunter class. It is where they unceremoniously dump the recruits who scored so catastrophically, so impossibly low, that the testing equipment literally questioned its own existence and calibration protocols. These are the beings who get assigned creatures that are either completely feral, permanently sedated, or, how do I put this delicately, dead. Kira Vex scored a -4. The testing administrator stared at those results for 6 full minutes in stunned silence. He recalibrated the machine twice. He tested himself just to make sure the equipment still functioned. It did. The human female had somehow managed to score worse than if she had simply not shown up at all. Captain Thorne, the Academy's head instructor, a massive Celtran with 4 arms and absolutely zero patience, read her assignment with visible disgust etched across his features. Cadet Vex, he growled, his secondary mouths clicking in irritation. You have been assigned to be 17, sub-level 9. The other recruits gasped in unison. Someone in the back, a cocky Narration named Joss, actually laughed out loud. Everyone knew what sub-level 9 meant. Sub-level 9 was where they kept the rejects, the true rejects. Kira Vex merely shrugged with infuriating casualness. Cool. Do they have coffee down there? No, they did not have coffee down there. What they did have, however, was something infinitely more interesting than caffeinated beverages. Sub-level 9 smelled like a nauseating combination of decay, desperation, and disinfectant that was clearly losing its futile battle against entropy. The lighting flickered erratically every few seconds, casting dancing shadows that made you seriously question every life choice that had led you to this place. The cages, if you could even call them that, were rusted, dented, and in some cases literally held together with what appeared to be salvaged duct tape and prayers. The creatures inside were, well, calling them creatures was being generous to the concept of biology itself. Kira walked past a cage containing something that looked like a deflated balloon with teeth. It wheezed at her with pathetic desperation. She walked past another cage, holding what might have once been a Ravager hound during some distant golden age, but now merely lay on its side in an eternal stupor, drooling with methodical consistency. A third cage was completely empty except for a faded sign that read, "Escaped 3 years ago. Presumed decomposed." Okay, Kira said to the automated assistant's drone hovering nearby with its usual mechanical indifference. So where is mine? The drone's optical sensor swiveled toward the very last cage in the very darkest corner of the entire facility. The cage that made all the others look positively inviting. Unit designated Shade. Classification, Umbrial Stalker. Status, Hostile. Unresponsive. Scheduled for termination. Kira approached slowly, methodically, her eyes taking in every detail. The cage was massive, larger than all the others combined, reinforced with triple-layered barriers that hummed with ominous energy. Warning signs covered every surface in every language known to the galactic community. Danger. Do not approach. Seriously, what are you doing? Do not even think about it. Inside the cage, something moved. It was not a movement you could easily describe with conventional terminology. It was like watching smoke decide to become solid. Shadows peeling away from shadows, darkness calling to deeper darkness. And then suddenly 2 eyes opened. Eyes that glowed with a deep, penetrating violet light. Eyes that had probably witnessed the death of stars and found it mildly entertaining at best. The Umbrial Stalker was massive, easily 4 meters long, covered in scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its claws could probably cut through starship hull plating like butter. Its teeth definitely could, without question. "Hello there," Kira said with genuine cheerfulness, as if she were greeting an old friend rather than an apex predator specifically bred to kill things. The creature snarled. The sound made the floor vibrate underneath her feet. "Yeah, I get it," Kira continued, completely unfazed by what should have been a terrifying display of aggression. "Bad day, bad week, bad 3 years probably. The food here is terrible, right?" Another snarl, louder than the first. The drone backed away quickly, its instinct for self-preservation overriding its programming. "Cadet Vex," it warned urgently. "That creature has killed 4 handlers and injured 12 others. Approach is not recommended." Kira ignored the warning entirely. She sat down cross-legged directly in front of the cage, a position of complete vulnerability that made my blood pressure rise just watching the surveillance footage later. "So here is the thing," Kira said, speaking to the stalker as if they were equals having a philosophical discussion. "Shade. Can I call you Shade? I am going to call you Shade. Here's the thing, I tested really badly. Like historically badly. Which means everyone expects me to fail. They expect you to eat me, or ignore me, or possibly both." Shade's eyes narrowed with what might have been interest or might have been hunger. It was genuinely difficult to tell. "But here is what they do not understand," Kira continued, leaning forward with absolute confidence. "I am human, and humans, we are really, really good at befriending things that want to kill us. It is basically our entire species' superpower. We made friends with wolves, with cats, with horses that could kick our heads clean off our shoulders. We even made friends with tiny dinosaurs and called them chickens. We adopted them as pets." Shade tilted its massive head slightly, an almost imperceptible gesture. "So here's my proposal," Kira said, extending her hand toward the cage bars. "You stop trying to murder everyone, and I will get you out of this terrible cage. Deal?" For a long moment that stretched into eternity, nothing happened. The silence was absolute. The stalker simply stared at the human female with those glowing violet eyes. And then Shade did something that made every observation camera in the facility glitch simultaneously. It laughed. By day 2, the entire academy had reached a consensus. Kira Vex had completely lost her mind, which to be fair was a reasonable assumption given the evidence. She spent 14 hours sitting directly outside Shade's cage, talking about absolutely everything under every sun imaginable. Her childhood on a planet called Earth. The peculiar foods humans ate. Something called memes that made no linguistic sense whatsoever to any civilized species. The Umbriel stalker mostly ignored her, occasionally growling when she got too philosophical about the optimal toppings for something called pizza. But the fact that it was not actively trying to kill her was, in itself, remarkable. But day 3 was when things got genuinely weird. I was reviewing surveillance footage because that is what combat observers do when we are bored and chronically overstaffed. It was during one of these routine reviews that I noticed something impossible. Kira Vex had entered Shade's cage. Not the observation area. Not the feeding corridor. The actual cage. With the actual murder beast. The beast that had hospitalized a dozen handlers and killed 4. "What is she doing?" my assistant, a nervous Planthian named Rico, squeaked in absolute terror. "Dying, presumably," I replied with the dark humor that comes from working this job too long. Except she was not dying. She was sitting there, hand extended, palm up, just waiting for the creature to do whatever it was going to do. Shade circled her 3 times, each pass bringing those massive obsidian claws closer to her extremely fragile human body. The danger in that moment was almost unbearable to watch. And then, and I have reviewed this footage approximately 47 times to confirm I did not hallucinate this moment, Shade pressed its head against her hand. The creature that had hospitalized 12 handlers that had been scheduled for termination let a human pet it. The image alone should have rewritten every xenobiology textbook in the known universe. "Impossible," Captain Thorne said when I showed him the footage, his 4 arms crossing in absolute denial. "Umbriel stalkers cannot be tamed. Their neural pathways reject all standard bonding protocols. They are apex predators from a death world with an atmosphere that dissolves most organic matter. They do not bond. They do not befriend. Is biologically impossible." "Perhaps you should tell that to the stalker," I suggested mildly. By day 4, Kira had somehow acquired 3 more creatures in addition to Shade. A frost worm that had been comatose for 6 months suddenly woke up and fully activated when she walked past its tank. A void serpent that only responded to threats of violence started following her around like a confused puppy seeking approval. and something called a plague bearer, which honestly should not have been in the academy at all because it violated at least 9 biological warfare treaties, decided that Kira smelled interesting and absolutely refused to leave her side. "This is a statistical impossibility," Rico whispered, watching the monitors in mounting horror. "Humans," I said calmly, "specialize in statistical impossibilities." The other cadets noticed the impossible situation, of course. Joss, the Narration who had mocked her on day 1 with his usual arrogance, approached Kira during combat training. His assigned creature, a fairly impressive Razorback Titan, growled with territorial aggression. "So, the reject got lucky with one broken monster," Joss sneered with undisguised contempt. "Let us see how you handle a real combat scenario." Combat scenarios at the Academy are straightforward. 2 cadets, 2 creatures. Whoever yields first loses. It is supposed to teach tactical command under pressure, to separate the capable from the hopelessly outmatched. Kira looked at Joss, then at his Razorback Titan, then back at the Narration warrior. Then she smiled with genuine amusement. "Okay, sure. Sounds fun." The arena was packed to absolute capacity. Every cadet, every instructor, every observer in the sector wanted to witness the human with the -4 score get absolutely destroyed by superior force. Captain Thorne watched from the observation deck, all 4 of his arms crossed in stern anticipation. "Begin," the automated referee announced. Joss immediately commanded his Razorback to charge with maximum aggression. The creature was fast, powerful, built for overwhelming force. Its footsteps shook the arena floor with each thundering impact. Kira just stood there. She did not move, did not flinch. She did not even seem to breathe. She just whispered something too quiet for the microphones to properly catch. The shadows in the arena moved with impossible purpose. Shade materialized behind the Razorback like darkness given sentient form. One moment there was empty space. The next moment there was 4 meters of nightmare with glowing violet eyes. The Razorback skidded to an immediate halt, its aggressive posture collapsing into pure, primal terror. The creature that had been built to kill, to dominate, to conquer suddenly found itself face to face with something far more predatory than itself. But Shade did not attack. It simply looked at the Razorback, stared at it with those ancient, terrible eyes. And then the Razorback did something that made Captain Thorne drop his data pad in shock. It bowed, not yielded, not retreated. Bowed in complete submission to Shade, which meant by extension to Kira. "Impossible." Joss shouted in fury. "That is my creature. I raised it from a hatchling. It does not bow to anyone." Kira shrugged with casual indifference. "Apparently it does now." By day 5, 11 creatures had transferred their loyalty to Kira. Not through combat, not through neural override. They simply decided independently that this small human female was worth following. The Frost Worm, the Void Serpent, 3 Spike, hounds that had been scheduled for retirement, a phase cat that existed in 4 dimensions simultaneously, even a battle mantis that supposedly only responded to species-specific pheromone commands. And humans definitely do not produce the right pheromones. "This violates every single principle of xenobiology," Captain Thorne said, reviewing reports in his office with visible frustration. I was there because at this point the situation had become the most interesting thing happening in the entire sector. Creatures do not just transfer loyalty. There are biological imperatives, neural bonding periods, chemical dependencies. You cannot just ask nicely and expect a war beast to follow you across the galaxy. "And yet," I said quietly. "And yet," he repeated darkly. On day 6, something happened that changed everything. An actual emergency. A training exercise went catastrophically wrong when a containment field suffered complete failure and 6 Ravager hounds escaped into the cadet residential area. These were not the sad, drooling versions from Sublevel 9. These were active, hungry, and extremely angry. They wanted blood. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Security teams scrambled in organized chaos. Cadets evacuated in panic and disorder. Except Kira walked directly toward the chaos. "Cadet Vex, evacuate immediately," Captain Thorne's voice boomed through the speakers with undeniable command authority. She ignored him. She walked right into the residential wing, where 6 massive predators were tearing through furniture and walls like they were paper. She stood in the corridor, unarmed, unprotected, and did something absolutely insane. She whistled. Not a command whistle. Not a tactical signal. Just a casual, cheerful whistle like you might use to call a pet. The Ravager hounds stopped. All 6. Simultaneously, they turned toward her, lips pulled back, showing rows of teeth designed to crush armor, plating like it was candy. Kira smiled. Hey guys, rough day. What happened? What happened next will probably be studied by xenobiologists for the next century. The Ravager hounds did not attack. They did not retreat. They sat down. All 6 of them. As if she had asked them politely, and they had agreed to be civilized about the situation. Who is a good apex predator? Kira said, walking forward and scratching one behind its ear ridge with genuine affection. You are. Yes, you are. All of you are. By the end of day 7, exactly 1 week after arriving at the academy, Kira Vex had 43 creatures following her commands. Not assigned to her. Following her by choice. Including every single creature that had been classified as failed or uncontrollable. The impossible had somehow become routine. Captain Thorne called an emergency staff meeting with unmistakable urgency. Explain this, he demanded, gesturing at the compiled data and reports. Kira, who had been summoned to the meeting, looked at the assembled instructors with perfect calm. You want the truth? Yes, they responded in unison. You all tried to dominate them, she said simply, stating a fact as obvious as sunrise. You used neural override, chemical conditioning, pain compliance. You treated them like weapons instead of living things. I just treated them like people. They are not people, Captain Thorne said sharply. They are monsters. Kira smiled, the kind of smile that made me understand in that moment why humans were considered a dangerous species across the galaxy. Captain, she said softly, we have a saying on Earth. One person's monster is another person's best friend. Behind her, in the corridor, 43 sets of eyes glowed in the darkness, all of them waiting for her next command, all of them utterly devoted to this remarkable human who had shown them something they had never experienced before, respect. This is HFY Sage of Stars. Thank you for watching this incredible story of how one human changed the entire paradigm of creature training through nothing more than compassion and genuine connection. If you enjoyed this science fiction narrative, please hit the like button. It really does help our channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every single week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.